Welcome, everyone, for joining us. We are thrilled to be able to continue to offer programming throughout the year and not just at our annual meeting for AALS. My name is Stephanie Silvestri. I am from Seton Hall Law School, located in Newark, New Jersey, and I am the former co-chair of the Institutional Advancement section at AALS and current member of the Executive Committee. Today's session came from the annual meeting, actually, when our IA section got together to sort of discuss additional topics that we want to converse about, learn about, engage conversation on. And, we all work with sophisticated, high-functioning attorneys, but even they can be overwhelmed by something like estate planning or mentioning planned giving or leaving your legacy. So today is meant to be a high-level introduction, and what we hope that you each will leave here with is an understanding of what planned giving or gift planning is, general terminology, descriptions, and some sample language that you can include in your conversation with donors, and how you might begin a planned giving program at your institution or work more closely or better with your planned giving colleagues on campus. Before we get started, I do have a few questions. So I know a lot of us have our video off, so if you want to use the function in Zoom to just raise your hand to let us know which one of these you fall under, that would be really helpful so that we can sort of tailor our conversations based on who we have in the Zoom room today. So before we begin, let's go with the first poll. Today, because IA consists of three main areas or responsibilities: alumni relations, marketing, communications, and fundraising, we'd really like to understand who we have here. If you could raise your hand if you're involved if your primary role is regarding fundraising. One, two, I see a couple. All right. Oh, we've got a lot of fundraisers in the room. That's great. Good stuff. All right, and I'll ask you to lower your hand. And then how about anybody in the room that their primary role is alumni relations? Fundraising. Hey, Heather. Fabulous to have you join us. You've got a couple of alumni relations. 4. All right, and I'll ask you to lower your hand. And how about those that primary role is marketing or communications? Do we have any Marcom folks? Melody, wonderful. A couple. All right, Melody, it might just be you and me. Advancement operations. Thank you for that, Molly. New York law, right around the corner. Okay, so I have another question. I promise there's only 3 questions to help us get to know you better. Does your institution have a specific person or department responsible for planned giving? Raise your hand if your institution has a specific person or department for planned giving. Ooh, that's exciting. About half the room. Department at the university. Thanks, Jean. All right. So about half have a specific person or department. That's wonderful. Thank you. You can lower your hands. And then my last question is, what is your own experience or knowledge level that you would say with planned giving? Is it low, moderate, or high? So I'm going to start on the low end. Who here is like, this is your first introduction to getting a basic understanding about planned giving? Okay, that's great. I'm so glad you're here. Today is going to be wonderful for you. How about a high level of knowledge or experience with planned giving? Besides our presenter, do we have any experts in the room? No, all right. Well, I'm really excited for you to get to know our presenter. So then with that being said, I'm going to guess that everyone else is about a moderate level, which is perfect because today is going to be a really great overview of plan giving, but also that you'll be able to leave with some really specific takeaways. And on top of that, we will have time at the end for specific questions or comments or and the ability to have a conversation about, your own experiences with plan giving. So without further ado, I am absolutely thrilled to welcome Tony Simon as our guest presenter today. Tony is he's uniquely qualified to be speaking with IA about plan giving because number one, he's a graduate of Dickinson School of Law, which is now Penn State Dickinson Law. He practiced law for 12 years. And not only that, his focus while he was practicing was on estate planning, administration, tax law, tax exempt organizations, and charitable giving. So he's really, has the experience in the real world to be able to talk about these things. And then after that, he made the transition to higher ed fundraising in a major giving role for the College of Liberal Arts at Penn State for 4 years before transitioning to his current role as a gift planning officer in Penn State's Office of Gift Planning, where he's responsible for plan giving support services for multiple colleges and units at Penn State. Now, all of those experiences from practicing law, being a law student, being a law alum, and even major gift officer, having those conversations with donors, and then now being a gift planning officer, those experiences blended together will allow him to really tailor his presentation and our conversations today so that each of us leave this webinar with at least one takeaway to help us in our respective programs. So I am thrilled, and I hope you all join me in welcoming Tony. Thank you, Tony.
Thank you, Stephanie. That was a nice intro. I hope I can live up to the expectations you've created now. Yeah, I looking forward to this. I hope that that, as Stephanie said, you can take some practical things away from this talk today that will help you wherever you're at in your experience with gift planning. And that's my aim. If you've got questions, we'll be happy to take those at the end. And I don't have a very long presentation today, so I think we'll have plenty of time for that at the end. So I guess with that being said, why don't we go ahead and get started? We'll get through the slide deck and cover what I had in mind today. So here, one of the main things that I hope to leave with you today is, in my experience anyway, in higher ed fundraising, there on the part of frontline fundraisers, there is a lot of reticence or nervousness around the topic of gift planning. A lot of the gift officers that I've worked with can be somewhat intimidated by it. They worry about saying the wrong thing in front of donors or not having all the answers when they meet with their donors. And so I get that, right? I mean, it's difficult to have all the answers. I always tell them it's okay not to have all the answers. You can show just how diligent you are as a gift officer if you say you don't know, but you'll get the answer and then you can go back and figure it out. Hopefully you have gift planning support to help you do that. But at the end of the day, one of the takeaways that I want you all to get here today is that gift planning doesn't have to be this strictly esoteric exercise. So and what I mean by that is, not everybody is going to want to have a zeroed out charitable lead annuity trust. Not everybody is going to want a charitable remainder trust or any other, make a gift of restricted securities or something that has a lot of complications. Actually, in my experience, the vast majority of what we do in gift planning is documenting estate gifts. which are usually not very complicated, right? Next slide, please. So definition of gift planning, just to give you an overview, right? It's sort of this intersection where we have, an individual who might be doing estate planning and financial planning, as well as working in that philanthropic component, because of course there are ways that we can do more sophisticated planned gifts that do things like create an income stream from an outright gift for the donor or for the donor and a family member. But this is sort of the high level overview at the intersection of gift planning and the different areas that it touches on. And here I wanted to start with some numbers to show you that I think there's a lot of opportunity for us to engage donors and educate donors on the ability to make gifts of assets that are not cash. Now, I know in fundraising that cash is always going to be king, and cash is great, right? Immediate outright gifts are great. We all want those. We all need those. But there are other ways to make gifts that don't involve cash. The most that I see in gift planning are QCDs from IRAs, right? That's something that's been around since the Pension Protection Act in 2006, and that's a pretty well understood way of making a gift in the industry now. So we've got um, um, programs in place that make that very simple to do for donors. But also, especially when we've had an up market like we have for the most part, we've got a lot of folks with appreciated securities, right? Who would be incurring capital gains if they were to dispose of those securities. And so I continue to marvel at the fact that I encounter folks from time to time who didn't realize that they could avoid that capital gain tax by giving us the appreciated security or the appreciated asset. So I just wanted to sort of set the stage here to say, you know, there is the potential to educate folks on how they can make gifts other than cash. IRAs, estate gifts, those are viable and really lucrative ways to make gifts and to find success in your gift planning program. This slide kind of furthers that point, right? There are ways to make gifts other than cash. We need to be thinking about that when we meet with donors. We need to be thinking about how we introduce that subject, how we educate donors that they don't need to make a gift of cash. And then frankly, with gift planning, we can overcome some of the objections we hear from donors to outright cash gifts, right? Donors who may not be in a position to, who might not be very liquid, who may not be in a position to make a large outright gift. Look, I understand that a lot of people are in that same spot. Have you ever thought about including, my organization in your estate plans? Have you ever thought about including Penn State in your estate plans as a way to leave a legacy? That the kind of gift that costs you nothing today, right? So that's a lot more palatable for folks, especially those who aren't in a position to be making large cash commitments, right? So when I'm thinking about the traits or the attributes of some of the best gift planning prospects on paper, right? If I'm looking at lists of alumni and trying to hone in on those that we think might have the capability of making a large planned gift or a planned gift of any size, really, is obviously affinity and loyalty, right? I think we're always looking at that. Affinity is a big component to getting people engaged and getting them to an ask for a gift. Obviously, donors in the 60 plus age range are great because they've had 60 plus years to accumulate wealth, right? So they might be in a position not only to make a planned gift, but also in a position perhaps to make an outright gift as well. And then, of course, those that are the most appealing from a gift planning perspective are those without kids, in the sense that they're maybe the prime suspects for estate gifts. They've got to figure out what they want to do with their assets at death. And if there's no obvious heir that is a family member, a child, then maybe that's a great opportunity to get them thinking about including your school as a beneficiary in their will. So yeah, obviously a history of giving is also a good indication too, of somebody who might be a good person to get on your gift planning radar. So at Penn State, one of the things that I've done is I've worked to develop a curriculum for a gift planning certificate program where we sort of hand select, our senior VPs will sort of hand select 20 or so frontline fundraisers, and we'll go through an extensive multi-week course where we sort of we really kind of dig deep into the weeds on the discrete gift planning topics and the different gift planning vehicles. And we also provide in that program a really good overview of what I think is really important is having a basic understanding of income taxation and how these gift planning vehicles, especially gifts of appreciated securities, can help your donors with a problem, right? They might have a big capital gain they don't want to realize. Well, we can help them with that, right? And so as part of that program, one thing that we do is we're clients of TIAA CASPIC at Penn State. And so that gives us access to some pretty nice resources. And one of the things that I always share with the frontline fundraisers is this PAPA framework that they've provided for us, that they've developed over time, right? And so with the next few slides, what I wanted to do was give you some ideas about questions that you can use to ask your donors when you're having conversations with them to try and draw out information that will be helpful as you're thinking about lining them up for an ask, qualifying them for a planned gift, or just learning more about them. And so the PAPA acronym stands for, as you can see on this slide, people, assets, passion, plans, and advisors. And so the goal of these questions is to sort of, create these really open-ended questions, get the donors talking. And the thought is that it'll lead to a deeper conversation. You'll be able to gather some good intelligence, particularly with respect to assets that the donor has. But if you want to go to the next slide, please, here are some examples of the people questions. And you'll know that they're really open-ended, so that the goal is to get that donor to sort of divulge the information and hopefully lead to a deeper conversation. Again, this is a way you will learn about family, whether there are heirs, whether there are kids, whether they have, perhaps an aging parent they're caring for, that kind of thing. And then I think these can also be really helpful, if you go to the next slide, please, in qualifying assets, right? And you might learn whether they've got a portfolio of stocks that they picked up years and years ago. So they might have a very low basis in those stocks with lots of growth. And those would be great to fund a gift, an outright gift of appreciated securities. You can learn things about vacation properties. Maybe maybe they've got the lake house, but their one child isn't interested in that place. They don't like it. They're not going to use it. So maybe that helps you identify the lake house as an asset that might be a good asset to perhaps fund a charitable remainder trust. So you can go ahead and move through these next couple of slides. This is the passions one that really gets to, I really like the what sort of legacy would you like to leave question, is as a means of sort of honing in on the area of support. What was the most meaningful thing about your time at the institution? Was there a class or a teacher that really made a difference in your life that you go back to and think of, and something that you'd like to support? How can we best use your gift to support that area that you're most interested in supporting at the institution? And then plans. I have to say, this is another thing I really want to harp on, and I hope that you take away. This, I have used this simple question I've used more than any other, has resulted in more gift conversations than any other question. That's simply, have you ever thought about including Penn State in your estate plans? It's surprising how many people say, yeah, I actually I have, but I wasn't sure, how to do that. I wasn't sure if I needed to tell you about it. And so that's, if nothing else, that would be the one question that I would try to work into every conversation that I'm having when I'm meeting with donors, sometimes for the first time. Are you open to the idea of being a donor to Penn State? Great. Well, what does that look like for you? I can't make, I'm not going to be a big donor. I can't, I've got a kid in college right now. I just don't have, I don't have the cash. I don't have I don't have the means to make a big gift. A lot of people will think in that area of just the only way you can make a gift is cash. Well, guess what? There are plenty of other ways that you can make a meaningful gift. First and foremost, top of mind is an estate gift. Costs you nothing today. Can also use those to get to questions about, especially if there's a family business, thinking about who might be taking over that business, if there's a succession plan, if there's any kind of buy-sell agreement, what happens when one of the partners passes? Is there a buy-sell agreement that compels the other partners to purchase the deceased partner's interest, right? But those open-ended questions are great because they usually will get the donor. They can't just say yes or no. They've got to take some time to give you a more thoughtful response. So, and then, part of this work can be at times working with the donor's advisors, specifically maybe with financial planners or with their attorneys, of course, to help document the estate gift. And one thing I'll say now, I think now is a fine time to talk about it. There are some folks who, when we talk about the estate plan, or if you've ever considered including Penn State in your estate plans, some folks will say, "Oh, I've done it. It's done and dusted. You're in there, so we don't need to talk about it. We're done." Um, you know, it then kind of goes into, for me anyway, it goes into advocacy mode. A lot of closing estate gifts for me anyway is sort of getting the donors comfortable with documenting that gift with us, right? And so another one of the things that I rely on in helping them understand that this really is a mutually beneficial endeavor, right? By documenting your gift with us, that allows you to really limit what we can do with your estate gift. You give us the details of how we can use that gift. And it's helpful for a few reasons. First, I'm sure the fundraisers in the room have worked with people who want to do like the mini-me scholarships, I call them, which is, I was a left-handed Girl Scout from Somerset County, Pennsylvania, and I want to benefit left-handed Girl Scouts from Somerset County, Pennsylvania. Well, that's not the most useful gift, right? Because the more restrictions you have, of course, the more difficult it's going to be to award. So, working with folks who've said they've already included the institution in their estate plans is helpful because you can weed out those difficult to award gifts and work with the donor to loosen the restrictions, right? Um, that's a big deal because we probably, you know, I would expect many of you have worked or seen gifts that the donor never worked with a development person at the institution, and we had no idea this gift was coming, and then we get it, and we can't necessarily use it the way that the donor has restricted it, and I've seen it in old documents, old estate planning documents that had things that would be considered against public policy, right? With restrictions maybe based on gender or race that can be problematic for public institutions. So um, I'm always stressing how important it is to document the gift, if for no other reason than to say to the donor, look, you've got the ability to work with us right now to pin us down on how we need to use this gift. Let's make it easy on your family, on your personal representative or executor, trustee, whoever the case may be, to make sure that we've got a workable framework for your gift so that there's a roadmap in place and we can execute it seamlessly when the time comes. So just to hammer home the point that, these kind of second level questions, once you get past the initial understanding of, family, maybe you've got an idea, you understand they have a business, you understand they have a vacation home, you understand they have a large stock portfolio with some low basis stock. Um, you know, these are just meant to be illustrative of second level questions to dig a little bit deeper, find out, when did you acquire the real estate? What we're getting after there is, what's your basis, right? Do you have, would you have a capital gains issue if you disposed of the property? So again, just a takeaway for you guys to look at and consider when you're looking to discover and assess prospects and dig a little bit deeper once you learn sort of the basics about what they might have. So I just want to say, just take a couple of minutes to talk about these things, but not in such great detail. Just to make you aware, I've already talked about appreciated securities a lot, right? That was in the last campaign that we wrapped up a year and a half ago or so. We had a lot of people who had a lot of stock with a lot of built-in gain. So people who were interested and motivated to make an estate or a campaign gift. A lot of folks used appreciated security. We received a lot of those gifts. Not only just maybe one-time lump sums, but also people use them to satisfy pledges too. I mentioned the IRA rollover, more commonly called the qualified charitable distribution. Those are easy. They've been, like I said, they've been around since 2006. Most custodians of IRAs are very familiar with them, so it's a pretty rote transaction for them. And one thing I'll say here is that I've worked with a lot of donors who were right around the age of retirement, or at least right around the age where they were going to be required to start taking RMDs from their IRAs. And they were a little bit hesitant or reluctant to make an outright commitment because they didn't know what their income was going to look like in retirement. And many of them came to me, when we met next, said, my income's really not that different in retirement. I've got these big RMDs and I don't really need all of it. So, the QCD can act as a nice way to sort of alleviate, you don't get a charitable deduction, an income tax deduction for a QCD, but it avoids being added into their taxable income for the year, whatever portion they give to charity. And they can do up to $100,000 a year in that. And it's not an all or nothing proposition. So in other words, they can give you 5,000 of their 90,000 RMD if they want. It's really a nice way and an easy way to make a gift. I've harped on estate gifts. The other thing I'll say in this space is that, it costs you nothing now. You can include a bequest in your will, a specific pecuniary bequest for a specific dollar amount, or often we'll see residuary bequests. that give us a percentage of the residue of the estate. In those instances, we usually ask, when we're documenting that gift, we ask the donor to provide us with a good faith estimate of what they think that might be today. And then the other thing I'll say in this space is the stroke of the pen gift, which is a beneficiary designation. So for your non-probate assets, your IRAs, any kind of retirement asset that has a beneficiary designation, and life insurance, you can include the institution as a beneficiary, and that's what we call the stroke of the pen gift. Costs you nothing today. And then I mentioned the lifetime income gifts a little bit earlier. We do a lot of the most common type of lifetime income gift that we do at Penn State are charitable gift annuities. We've got a really robust CGA program. And so, and we find that people like to do multiple gift annuities. So they'll start with one and then they like them so much they do more and more. That's a pretty simple transaction. And a lot of people who are skittish about income in retirement, who might want to supplement their income in retirement and have concerns about market volatility, love these gift annuities because it's just a simple contract that says you give us X amount of dollars, lump sum, cash, or appreciated securities. In return, we give you a stream of income that will not change over time. So that's really appealing to some folks. And then the last thing I'll mention are blended gifts. The blended gift is, what I mean by that is simply a gift that has both an estate or a testamentary component and a lifetime component. And where we see that the most at Penn State are with estate gifts that have what we call here early activation. Some other places call it virtual endowment. And so what we do there is it's a blended ask. We say, look, we know we've talked about an estate gift. You've included Penn State for $100,000 in your current will. That's great. We've got it documented. What do you know? The great thing about the estate gift is it costs you nothing today, right? But the downside is that you don't get to see the fruit of your philanthropy in action, right? In other words, you're not going to see your scholarship that's created in your will. You're never going to see it in action. But if you early activate it, right, and you commit to $2,500 a year for 5 years, we'll take that money in and we'll turn it right back out and award it pursuant to the terms of your scholarship. So it'll give you sort of a little bit of a flavor of what the scholarship will look like once it's fully funded from your estate. So it's a smaller outright component blended with an estate component. Yeah, again, my point here is just to think about gifts other than cash. Don't, don't say, don't take the I can't make a gift right now as a final answer. Like what that usually means is I can't make a gift of cash right now, right? Ask the questions, do some digging and see what you can find. There may be other opportunities there. And of course, there's always the possibility that, somebody might be interested in a gift that gives them income back, right? Like a split interest gift, or again, estate gifts. Okay, I wanted to say just a couple of things, and I want to make sure we have enough time for questions at the end. But I just wanted to talk a little bit about the marketing that we do and how we use it at Penn State, because it has been pretty fruitful for us over the last few years. So, we recently created a digital gift officer position, and this person sort of works to organize the data we get from some of the marketing surveys that we do. So we'll send emails, email newsletters, other marketing things out to the alumni base and give them the opportunity to respond to us and ask us for more information. Say, I'm curious about including Penn State in my will. I'd like to learn more. Can you send me the basic estate planning packet, right? Where we help, we have this form that we use to kind of help people get organized, right? Figure out where your assets are, what institutions, which banks do you have accounts at, that kind of thing. So it helps them kind of get organized in taking the first step of estate planning, because that's, of course, a process, right? And the first thing you've got to do is sort of take an inventory of what you have and figure out, who you want to benefit and which assets then are the best to give to those beneficiaries, depending on who they are. So we do use surveys, and we get a surprisingly nice response to those surveys. So, um, you know, the surveys ask the donors to identify whether they've included Penn State in their estate plan. Some do, some want more information about that. We look for affinities, that is, a specific college or unit that they might want to benefit with their gift. And then we also use it as a means to get up-to-date information, contact information for them, right? And for them to tell us what their preferred means of contact is. In other words, would they like to see a gift officer? Do they want somebody to come meet them? Or would they prefer to be contacted by email or phone? So these have been really beneficial, and we've uh, you know, I was talking with our digital guy about some of the numbers, and they were really pretty interesting. We had 150 or so people who responded that they'd included Penn State in their estate plans. And those then create warm leads, right? That then we review the information and follow up with the units for those alumni, wherever they might fall, whatever college or unit they might fall responsibility wise. And we'll work with the gift planning liaison for that unit. We'll usually work with either the director of development there or the one of the gift officers who might be responsible for this person's territory, wherever they might be located geographically, to follow up with them. And quick follow up is the key, right? Striking while the iron's hot, so to speak. It's resulted in closing a lot of gifts that we didn't know were out there. So, it was really, I think, can be helpful because, as I said, estate planning is a process, and people will tell us in the survey, "Oh yeah, I've included Penn State," or "I'm thinking about it," right? And for those people who are thinking about it, that process might take 2 or 3 or 4 years to finish, from learning about it to getting pen to paper on gift paperwork. So it can be a tool to help fill the pipeline, right? For folks who are interested in learning more about estate planning, who haven't included the institution in their estate plans, but who might want to, who are thinking about it. Get them the information and partner with them early in the process, so that we can help them along the way, and sort of make sure that we can use that gift for exactly the reason that they'd like us to use it. And this, it also creates, an opportunity to steward as well. I've worked on a few gifts where folks had signed up for an estate gift, and you know, after years of conversation, they decided that, what, I want to fund that scholarship now. We can keep the estate component, but I really want to do, I'm in a place now where I'm comfortable making that, $50,000 commitment over 5 years. I'm ready to do that. So it's a nice way to steward people. And reconfirming estate commitments is a big thing for us. Not only is it a good way to steward, and that in turn can lead to other things like outright commitments, it can also lead to increased estate commitments, especially when you have a 7 or 8 year long campaign. If you've got an estate gift booked, it's a residuary gift, right? It's a percentage of the estate, and you book that gift. It's always a good idea to go back and make sure we're still in the will. And years of stock market growth can result in that percentage bequest becoming a bigger number. So that may be some low-hanging fruit that you can scoop up in campaign totals. So I think that's the last point that I wanted to make. And now I will do my best to answer any questions anybody might have.
Hi, Tony. I have a question. I'm an associate director of reunion class giving at Columbia Law School, and I work with a lot of alumni who are celebrating their 5th, 10th, 15th, 20th reunion. And I'm curious if you've had any success um, with uh, planned gifts with this younger constituency who might not be as, developed in their careers and might not be as comfortable making outright cash gifts, etc.
Yeah,
Thank
no,
you.
that's a great question. Sure. Thank you for that. I look, it's tough. You've got the case counting standards, right? You've got to think about what counts in campaign totals and things like that. And you're right. I mean, the younger alumni don't often have the ability to make large outright commitments. They're not the best plan giving prospects. That's just, now I know that different institutions have different rules about what they count, what ages they do. I think if somebody wants to have a conversation about an estate gift, even if it doesn't count, it gives you the opportunity to get them into the fold and create a relationship with them that you can steward. And then hopefully that will blossom into something bigger down the road. Once they get to a place where maybe they're more comfortable with a larger outright commitment. Um, and like a deferred way down the road, uh, charitable gift annuity might be an option too if your institution offers those things. You can sign up for a gift annuity now that won't pay for years and years down the road. That's a possibility, but that's a tough demographic for gift planning, frankly.
Thank you.
Hi, Tony. Jean Mulry from St. John's Law School. Great presentation. I've been to a number and I got a lot of good information here, so thank you for that.
Thank you.
Um, now you've done gift planning with for nonprofits that were not law schools, and so have I. And I'm still early at the law school stage, and I did run into a few, and these are great demographic, people who probably, have some planned giving, but I found that the lawyers thought they knew everything and they
Yeah.
didn't. No, and so
Yeah.
how do you get around that? That's what I'm still working on that.
Yeah, look, that's tough. I mean, I have to say, did frontline fundraising in liberal arts, and we produce a lot of lawyers, right? A lot of poli-sci majors, a lot of history majors that went on to law school back in the 70s and 80s. We even had a pre-law major for a while. We don't anymore, but um, that can be tough to overcome. I think, you know, advocating for the importance of documenting is what I would fall back on, and making it clear to them that we want to work with you to make sure that we can honor your intentions. It's important that we're able to use your gift the way you want us to use your gift. And so, let's work together to, you know, get something on paper. And by the way, the way that we document these gifts is an amendable and revocable thing, right? So it's not written in stone. And so, sometimes it's appealing to um, their interest in getting the specific use guaranteed, right? In writing for now, it can change, but getting it on paper. Sometimes it is the appealing to the let's make this easy for your family. Let's make this easy for your personal representative, your executor, and just take care of it now, right? Sometimes that's how I get them to come to the table, but that's a real challenge. I've encountered, I think, more attorneys who kind of sheepishly said, I don't know anything about estate planning, and these are really successful big law firm attorneys who might work in M&A or something, and they've never done it. They've never done an estate plan. They've never, and they're embarrassed about it, but that's not uncommon. So, I mean, even for lawyers, they don't, people, I think, have a general it's easy to have an aversion to estate planning because it makes you think about your own mortality. It makes you think about and make decisions and have conversations, you know, that might be difficult. You know, one of the big points of contention when I was practicing were, you know, who's going to be the guardian of our kids if something happens to both of us, right? And that's a question that a lot of young couples haven't thought about. And sometimes they have very different opinions about who it's going to be. And then you really, you know, learn what wife thinks about brother-in-law at the table there. So, yeah, that's a real thing. I hear you.
Thank you. That's a great suggestion, though, to just segue it into documentation, which lawyers do love.
Right. And so, you know, again, they love it or they hate it, right? I have had occasion where, you know, I've said to the donor who didn't want to document that their attorney said, "Oh, don't sign anything," you know, and that always really bothers me because to me that's lazy lawyering. I mean, what, you know, this again, this gives you the opportunity to tie our hands and say what we've got to do with this gift, right? This is in your best interest. Make sure now. And the other thing I'll say to people sometimes who may, whether it's an attorney suggesting they don't sign anything or not, is say, you don't want us to use it to buy new scoreboards at the football stadium, right? You don't want us to use your gift to put carpet in the dorms. You've got the ability right now to work with us and limit what we can do with it when we get it. So please don't make us, you know, put a fresh coat of paint on the bathrooms in the dorms.
If there is another question, please jump in or raise your hand or type it in the thought here. Tony, I can't thank you enough for today. I left here with a whole page full of ideas from you, and we had talked previously too. So I hope that everyone has as well. You know, one of the things that I know my colleague who came from your institution brought to Seton Hall Law was the idea behind blended and virtual endowments. And that was an immediate influx of cash for the law school, because it was this whole new program that we were able to say, hey, you know what, our threshold at Seton Hall is $50,000 for an endowment. So instead of that $50,000 ask, we started doing $62,500 asks. And so that increased the dollars in the door for current use, goes right to awarding the scholarship while the endowment was growing. And we did that both for estate gifts, but also for major gifts. And so, you know, if they were going to be fulfilling that pledge over 5 years, that endowment wasn't going to be spinning off that $2,500 yet. And so by additional like current use funds, we really did increase our giving in a very short period of time. So that's definitely one of the really great things. Another thought that I would love for you to comment on is, because lawyers are so unique, you know, if you think about like personal injury lawyers, they might get like huge settlements one year and nothing the next year. And so for me, it was an eye-opening discussion that I had with my colleague who focuses in on planned giving, is, you know, that's actually a huge opportunity for us to be able, when we hear that they just want, you know, you read about it in the paper, obviously you want to give some time, you don't want to look like you're going right for the money, that settlement money, but they might need assistance with making sure to protect their own taxes and their assets. So can you highlight a little bit about why in particular planned giving or those vehicles are important for lawyers in maybe those instances?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, look, I think for anybody who in the industry, we always call it a tax event, right? If you're going to have a big income event in a particular year, you know, it makes sense to talk to your accountant, your attorney, and gift planning can be at the table for that conversation too. We might be able to structure a planned gift that would, you know, give you a little bit of a tax break, right? But also give you a stream of income, you know, from that lump sum. So I think to the extent that we can paint ourselves as, you know, we can help you with this problem, right? You've got this too much income problem in this year. We might be, and again, this is something where I stress to the frontline fundraisers, you don't have to have all the answers. You just need to know, hey, this guy's got an income event. Let me talk to an expert. Let me bring somebody in here to maybe help generate some ideas or discussion points. And then, they'll begin to see you, hopefully, as a trusted advisor, rather than, a fundraiser who's looking for a big payday, right? Like, we can actually help you solve this issue.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Tony. Are there any other questions before we sort of wrap up here? Give a second. Marianne, I saw your comment. We will share the PowerPoint.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
Also, just on the big income event, I think a lot of times, especially for personal injury attorneys, it's taking, that they're in the process of working through a case. And so I think sometimes having those conversations, you can have a conversation just about what if this is, and start to build that relationship with that attorney if you don't have it, or if it needs to be strengthened, so that 2 years down the road, when they get that fantastic victory and it's all over the paper, like, you're already kind of somebody they've got an interest in, and you've already opened up that opportunity. And then they're doing the kind of planning that Tony's talking about, where it's much more specific in terms of what they want their kind of legacy gift to look like. So I would say you don't have to wait to rush in. You can rush in early.
That's a great point. Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, it's a way to build trust and get them thinking about you as that trusted advisor, kind of, before fundraiser necessarily, right? To say something like, hey, this is something you need to start thinking about. Plant that seed now, so that you might be well positioned when the time comes, right? That's a great point.
I love that, Marianne. That's really wonderful, and something I will definitely take away so that I am not rushing in. Well, we have kind of come up to the end of our program here. I cannot thank you enough, Tony. You have been fabulous for us. I hope that everyone took away something. Before we head out, I do want to introduce Robin Langen. She's from Penn State Dickinson Law as well, and she is the reason that we have Tony here with us today. And so, Robin, thank you so much. I know you are the current co-chair of our section, so if you want to give a little hello to those of us still on the call, that'd be great.
I just want to reiterate the thanks to Tony and to you, Stephanie. It's such a pleasure to be able to highlight the depth of knowledge that our gift planning officers at Penn State have. Tony, that was phenomenal. Coming from a director of alumni relations, even I feel empowered now to have more intelligent conversations with our alumni and donors that we're meeting with around the country. As Stephanie said, this institutional advancement section is your resource. We invite you to remain engaged with us. We'll have webinars, professional development every other month, and we're aiming for a social event as well, as just sort of like a get together and be colleagues. We have, I think I mentioned, a newsletter that goes out monthly. I hope you all are digesting that. It has great information. And hat tip to Marianne, who has many good ideas and is also the de facto editor of our section newsletter. So thank you all for joining today on this LEAP day. Again, Stephanie, thank you for jumping in and helping to run the session. And I'll turn it back over to you to say, signing off.
Thank you so much. And once again, thanks, Tony. This was wonderful.
Great. Thanks for having me. This was fun.